Join us on Patreon and become part of our journey to uncover history's untold stories. Your support helps us create in-depth content, bring hidden narratives to life, and keep history alive for everyone. The story of the Chickasaw Nation is one of resilience, strength, and an intricate cultural heritage that weaves together indigenous, African, and European influences. While much of mainstream history often highlights the Chickasaw as one of the 5 civilized tribes, a term historically used to describe the Chickasaw, Cherokee, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole peoples, what is often overlooked is the deep and complex Black ancestry within the Chickasaw Nation. This history, spanning centuries, is marked by moments of alliance, bondage, intermarriage, and eventual struggles for identity and recognition. The Chickasaw people are indigenous to what is now the southeastern United States, particularly in regions of Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, and Kentucky. They were known as fierce warriors and skilled diplomats, adept at both resisting European encroachment and forming strategic alliances when necessary. Long before European contact, the Chickasaw maintained a structured society with deeply rooted spiritual, social, and political systems. The earliest documented African presence in the Chickasaw Nation likely predates the formalized institution of slavery. When European explorers, particularly the Spanish under Hernando de Soto in the 1540s, made their way through the southeastern United States, they were accompanied by African individuals, some as enslaved laborers, others as freedmen. Some of these Africans may have escaped and sought refuge among the indigenous communities, including the Chickasaw. While early records on this are scarce, oral traditions suggest that some African individuals integrated into tribal life, contributing to the early foundations of Chickasaw society. By the 17th and 18th centuries, European colonial powers had firmly established the transatlantic slave trade, which brought vast numbers of enslaved Africans to the Americas. The Chickasaw, like other southeastern tribes, found themselves in a precarious position as European settlers encroached upon their lands. The French, Spanish, and English all vied for influence, and in response, the Chickasaw aligned themselves with the British. One significant consequence of this alliance was the Chickasaw's participation in the European-style chattel slavery system. By the early 18th century, the Chickasaw had begun to own enslaved Africans, largely as a result of their trade partnerships with the British. This adoption of chattel slavery was in part a means of survival in an increasingly hostile colonial landscape. Unlike the plantation slavery of the Deep South, slavery among the Chickasaw often had different cultural nuances. Many enslaved individuals were allowed greater autonomy, sometimes even integrating into tribal customs. However, by the 19th century, slavery within the Chickasaw Nation had become harsher, increasingly mirroring the brutality of the system in the broader American South. Despite the institution of slavery, African and Chickasaw relationships were multifaceted. Many enslaved Africans formed close bonds with Chickasaw families, and in some cases, intermarriage occurred. Some Africans who had lived among the Chickasaw for generations adopted their language, customs, and traditions. During this period, the Chickasaw and their enslaved Black population faced increasing pressure from the expanding United States government. The Indian Removal Act of 1830, signed by President Andrew Jackson, forced the Chickasaw and other southeastern tribes to relocate westward to what is now Oklahoma. This forced migration, part of the larger Trail of Tears, was devastating, and many Chickasaw, along with the Black individuals who lived among them, suffered immense hardship. The journey west disrupted social structures and forced the Chickasaw to adapt to new realities, including increased interactions with other indigenous and African-descended peoples. During the Civil War, the Chickasaw Nation, like other indigenous groups in Indian Territory, was divided. The Chickasaw government formally allied with the Confederacy, seeing it as a means to maintain sovereignty and resist U.S. encroachment. Many enslaved Africans within the Chickasaw Nation seized the opportunity to escape or support the Union cause. When the war ended in 1865, the U.S. government pressured the Chickasaw to free their enslaved population. However, unlike some other tribes, the Chickasaw government resisted integrating freed Black individuals into their nation. Whereas the Cherokee and Seminole nations granted full citizenship to their freedmen, the Chickasaw refused to do so, citing concerns over maintaining their own sovereignty and economic structure. This refusal led to a long struggle for Chickasaw freedmen, who were left stateless, as they were neither considered U.S. citizens nor Chickasaw citizens. For decades, they fought for recognition, land rights, and inclusion within the Chickasaw Nation, a struggle that continues in various forms to this day. Despite historical barriers,
The African ancestry within the Chickasaw Nation remains a vital part of its history. Many Black Chickasaw descendants continue to embrace their dual heritage, honoring both their indigenous and African roots. While legal battles over citizenship persist, the cultural contributions of Black Chickasaws are undeniable. Music, folklore, agricultural practices, and even resistance movements among the Chickasaw were all shaped in part by the presence of African-descended individuals. Oral histories passed down through generations highlight the resilience of Black Chickasaw communities, who, despite being marginalized, maintained their cultural identity and fought for their rightful place in history. The Black ancestry of the Chickasaw Nation is a powerful yet often overlooked aspect of American history. It is a story of survival, adaptation, and perseverance against the forces of colonialism, slavery, displacement, and racial exclusion. From the earliest African arrivals who found refuge among indigenous peoples to the enslaved individuals who lived and labored within the Chickasaw Nation, to the freedmen who fought for recognition, this history is rich and complex. As discussions about indigenous identity, race, and historical justice continue, it is crucial to acknowledge and honor the contributions of Black Chickasaws. Their legacy is a testament to the resilience of those who lived at the crossroads of multiple cultural traditions, shaping the history of both the Chickasaw Nation and the broader United States.